Welcome back to Managing Next Generation Firewall Devices. A little bit of a background before we just jump right into it. Keep in mind, this is our initial GUI of the Firepower Management Center, our centralized enterprise management appliance. Especially, in my opinion, important to make sure that it is abundantly clear after our last topic, which was potential possible on-box management options. So once again, centralized enterprise management from an appliance perspective. And let's remember again that this is very, very tab focused. I think it's important to keep that in mind because over these next few slides, we're going to be going into individual tabs to configure various aspects. So the very first thing that we see here is we're under devices and device management, which was a few topics ago where we went to verify that a managed appliance was successfully registered with Firepower Management Center. So we see here again, sure enough, we have the display name, FTD, keeping in mind that's a display name only, not a host name, and the green check. And then folks, we're going to be spending quite a bit of time on this pencil to edit various options. So notice, as we said, we can change the display name. I'm going to save this option for last. We see in which mode the appliance is running. If it has or is compliant against any common criteria compliancy or UCAPL requirements. And we can also do a force deployment to push out changes, forces deployment of policies to the managed device. Now folks, the reason why I save this one right here for last is it's one of the last things I want to talk about on the slide. It's one of my favorite, more technical subjects to go over, is you might be in an environment where you're heavily complianced. And any type of external communication, for example, event monitoring, especially packet information, any types of external communication of the actual data being transmitted might violate a security policy. Remember again, we're going over a security subject. I told you before, I'm a heavily security-minded person. So in those environments where packet information, packet data, event information from the managed device cannot cross your network to go to the Firepower Management Center appliance, because it would violate a compliancy or a regulation, you would just go in and remove the check mark next to transfer packets. Once again, if that kind of information on the wire between the managed device and Firepower Management Center is violating some regulations of yours in your environment, you would just remove that check mark. Nice option. Please note what we can also do, looking again at the system properties of the managed device, is we can do a stop and a restart. Stop will do exactly that. It just not physically pulling the power cord, not hitting the ON/OFF button on the appliance, but it software stops the appliance, where you can go through and have someone go up and physically power it back on. But please understand the difference between stop and restart. Guys, restart is going to be, for those of you who are old school like I am, your ability to do a Control-Alt-Delete and software reboot or do a warm boot of the device. So please keep in mind the differences between stop and restart, especially how stop will, yes, halt the device, not physically pulling the hardware, but someone will still have to go up and power it back on, power cycle it to get it back up and running. All right, as far as licensing, we've talked about licensing in its own dedicated topic before. So we're able to see here licensing of the managed device and which licenses are enabled, and then also go in and edit the various license options. Getting into, if we again click on the editing of the licenses, we can see what license option and its current state. And keep in mind, back from that previously recorded topic, we have a classic approach and a smart licensing approach. So they're showing you again your smart license interface for the managed device. Now getting into the health of the managed device. So please note we have a green status. You know how humans are. Green is good, red, amber is bad. So this catches our attention real quick. And we can even have a policy applied to monitor the health of the appliance. And if there's any blacklisted types of modules, health modules that have been disabled. Maybe again there is something that does not exist in the appliance that you don't want to check health-wise, or maybe there's a known problem physically with this appliance, but it's still working just fine. So again, you can go in and disable certain health check modules with a blacklisted policy. Really nice option there. Then guys, we get into the management option, the ability literally to turn off, disable the management of the device. In my opinion, there's two reasons, but I want to be very clear. I don't know everything. I've not come across every single possibility. These are just the two most common reasons why I disable the management of a device. Number one is if I want to validate the management connection, disable it, re-enable it, it resets the management connection, and that gives me an extra little thought, an extra little comfort that, yeah, Mr. Client, I know that we're able to communicate with this physical appliance because we just reestablished management connectivity. Or if I know this device is going to go down for a period of time, maybe having to replace the power supplies, having to replace controllers within inside of the managed device. And the last thing I want is constant alarms, constant notifications from Firepower Management Center that the managed device is down. I'm just going to, again, disable temporarily management of the device so we can go through and do our physical change order on the device. All right, getting into interface properties. So if we back up a little bit, what brought us here was we went under devices and device management. Please keep in mind this is again that display name. And now we're just coming over here under interfaces. We have the ability to both edit existing interfaces and then also go in and add interfaces. Maybe, for example, we want to create a sub-interface off of one of our physical interfaces. So guys, that's what they're doing here. They're editing, I want to be clear, they just chose a little pencil here. They're editing a physical interface. We can change our mode. Remember again, our routed or transparent mode. We can give it a name. Humans, we like names, maybe define DMZ, inside, outside. A security zone, you might remember from a previous topic, security zones allow us to define multiple interfaces that are in the same zone for the same policy, or again, especially supporting the same kinds of traffic. And folks, we always say this, a description, not required, but strongly encouraged. No joking around. I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, much less why I may have deployed this interface months ago. So descriptions, one more time, are not required, but they are strongly, strongly encouraged. And then we're coming on down here to the general tab. I think of this as more the physical and data link layer. If you're an infrastructure person like I am, OSI is a large part of the terms that you use. So you're going to hear me a lot in these topics go over different layers of the OSI model. So to me, this is going to be more layer 1, layer 2 characteristics with, again, our interface ID and even the MTU, the maximum size of the data field. Please note what we did. We just went over from general to IPv4 at the top, and then general over here to IPv6. So IPv4 first, we can change how the address is going to be given or decided on the appliance. So in our case, maybe we're going from use DHCP over to use a static. And then of course we would have to go in and fill those values in accordingly. And then also guys, we can do a lot of information here on enabling IPv6, our link local address, and various IPv6 configuration options. Please remember, and tell you what, I'm going to back up just for 2 slides here just so we can keep a perspective on where in the world are we. So we just went under interfaces. Now what we're going to do is go over routing. I can't speak for you, but I know for me, when I'm just working my way through a GUI, I want to always be reminded, hey, hold on a second, where are we in this GUI? Because we just got really, really deep down this rabbit hole, and now you're pulling me out, and I want to remember where we were and where we're going next. So guys, now we're getting into the routing configuration. And really, especially if you've been watching all of the other topics up until now, there's only one option that is new here. And that is, again, going to be our multicast routing. So let's go ahead and save that one for last. Remember, again, we have static routing for ultimate control. We have our various dynamic routing protocols like OSPF, RIP, BGP, and then again, multicast routing. For those of you who do multicast in your environment, you know multicast has to be end-to-end configured if you want to get the most out of your multicast policy, your multicast configuration. So obviously end-to-end is not only going to be our clients ultimately connecting over here to our servers. Remember, again, I'm not much of an artiste. But it's going to be our switches, our routers, our firewalls in between. So what we're talking about here is because a firewall, this being a firewall subject, firewall being in between the client receiving the stream and the server sending the stream, the firewall is going to need to have multicast routing enabled and configured according to your end-to-end multicast policy. So even though this is a subject for another time, multicast configuration, multicast routing is huge in those environments who have firewalls, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to these topics, and multicast enabled in their environments. All right, as far as static routing, adding a static route. So please note once again, we're under routing. We come on down here to static route and we just simply add route. Let me jump around here just a little bit, because ultimately what we're trying to do is add our destination network. And there's nothing wrong with adding multiple. We click them over here and then we simply add in the middle box. Now it might happen where you're looking through this list and you don't find what you're looking for. Well, no problem. You can create new network definitions right from here. So the idea is to ultimately get to this destination, I'm going to go through this interface. I'm then going to go to this next hop. And here is my cost or my metric. So let me pause. I want to do this one more time. And we'll then move on. Clean up this slide real quick. So once again, if I ultimately want to get here, I'm going to go through this interface to this next hop. And again, this is going to be our ultimate cost. So the reason why I wanted to go over it again and again is that's the core, if you ask me, of configuring a static route. Now let's go over some of the ancillaries, some of the features on the periphery. Guys, I could make myself a tunneled route, a route, for example, for a VPN tunnel. I can even do, and boy, I really like this feature, what's referred to as route tracking. The ability to identify if an address is no longer reachable or a DNS name is no longer reachable through this firewall, and then switch over to a newly configured static route. And it doesn't have to be just, is this address or this DNS name reachable? We could even choose to switch over to this static route that we're configuring if there is a certain protocol communication that's not available, or even if there's latency, increased latency on our current route to the destination. Really nice options. All right, continuing on. Super important subject here, and that's saving the changes. Folks, pretty straightforward. We are making our changes within inside of the Firepower Management Center, not on the actual managed device, not yet. So when we click on Save, that's again saving it within inside of the Firepower Management Center, but I cannot be more serious, cannot be more serious. You have to actually click on Deploy to have it sent to the managed device. So all we went over here are some base device management of course, the managed device, the Firepower appliance, from within inside of the Firepower Management Center. Again, all graphical based, drilling down into the individual appliances and features like general status, interface settings, and routing so far. But the reason why I say so far is I promise the topics to follow are going to be going over so many other options. And then let's also not forget that once you're making your configuration changes, you click on Save to make them permanent inside of Firepower Management Center, but then you ultimately have to deploy it to the managed device. Thanks again for watching.